Reborn at the tender age of 6, I have resolved to await my demise in tranquil silence. In my previous life, burdened by a congenital heart condition, I exerted every ounce of strength to warm the hearts of my 5 illustrious brothers, only to be met with their disdain and estrangement. At the age of 20, I passed away alone on a hospital bed abroad. Upon reopening my eyes, I found myself back at the inception of my nightmares, 6 years old, on the day I was humiliated by classmates and confined to a dark room by my teacher. In this lifetime, I have surrendered. Compliant, quiet, and submissive, I shall swallow all suffering and melodrama with resolute fortitude, merely hoping for my heart to cease its labor sooner rather than later. Reborn at the age of 6, I have resolved to await my demise in silence. In my previous life, burdened with a congenital heart condition, I expended every ounce of energy trying to warm the hearts of my 5 illustrious brothers, only to be met with their disdain and estrangement. At 20, I passed away alone on a foreign sickbed. Upon opening my eyes once more, I found myself back at the starting point of my nightmare, 6 years old. On the day my classmates tore apart my homework and my homeroom teacher locked me in this small dark room. In this lifetime, I have surrendered. Compliant, quiet, and submissive, I swallowed all my pain and pretentiousness, merely hoping for my heart to cease its labor sooner rather than later. Until that day arrived, my eldest brother was reviewing homework when he heard my inner thoughts. If I die, I won't trouble my brother anymore. He stormed out, his face ashen. My 5th brother snatched away my medication, berating me for feigning illness, yet upon hearing my thoughts, without the medicine, so be it. I shall die like this. He watched me collapse, screaming in terror. My 2nd brother, in the laboratory, observed my brainwaves in a coma emitting a desperate Morse code, while my heartbeat synchronized to a halt. The 5 brothers of the Lin family, once formidable, suddenly found themselves able to hear my innermost thoughts. They finally comprehended how the sister they deemed a burden and scorned as weak had endured countless nights alone, suffocated by debilitating pain. Beneath that calm, numb visage lay extraordinary yet self-destructive wisdom. Moreover, hidden beneath my pillow was an organ donation agreement, the beneficiary section meticulously filled with their 5 names. A chilling sensation emanated from my fingertips, not the sterile scent of hospital disinfectant, nor the rhythmic ticking of medical instruments, but rather the acrid odor of inferior chalk dust mingled with dirt, invading my nostrils, evoking a suffocating familiarity. Lin Wan gazed at the scattered fragments of homework on the ground. The white paper pieces resembled shredded butterfly wings, carelessly strewn across the filthy cement floor. A group of children clad in pristine uniforms encircled her, their faces alight with malicious glee. Little mute, sickly wretch, what good is your flawless homework? The teacher says you copied. Indeed, a wild child without parents to care for you. Their sharp, juvenile voices pierced like needles, relentlessly assaulting her eardrums. A familiar, subtle pain throbbed in her heart, as if an invisible hand gently pinched it. Lin Wan lowered her eyelashes, the long lashes casting a faint shadow on her pallid skin, obscuring eyes that appeared devoid of focus. Here it came again, an identical scene. She had been reborn, back at 6 years old, the origin of this nightmare. In her previous life, she had lived to 20, dragging that broken heart, alone on a cold sickbed in a foreign land, swallowing her last breath in solitude. She had thought herself liberated, only to open her eyes and find herself back at this repugnant starting point. Pick it up. Can you hear me? A chubby boy shoved her forcefully. Lin Wan stumbled slightly, her frail body swaying like a leaf on the verge of falling in an autumn breeze. She offered no resistance, not even glancing up at them. Instead, she silently and slowly crouched down, her thin fingers reaching out to carefully gather the scattered paper fragments from the ground. Her movements were mechanical, imbued with a near-numb calmness. And so it began anew. Pick it up, reassemble it, just as in the past. After all, no one cared what was written. Her heart felt a bit constricted, but it was bearable. She would not die, at least not yet. Soon. Just endure for another decade or so. Inside, she felt no turmoil, only a desolate stillness. Having lived once, she felt only fatigue. In her previous life, she had exhausted herself trying to draw near, to please, to prove her worthiness of love, only to watch her brothers retreat further into the distance, lost in endless neglect. In this lifetime, she extinguished even that faint glimmer of hope, wishing only to exist quietly, causing as little trouble to others as possible, awaiting death. Just as her fingertips brushed against the final piece of paper, a foot suddenly stomped down upon it, grinding it beneath. "Oh, you're picking up quite earnestly, aren't you?" A mocking child's voice chimed. Lin Wan's movements halted. She looked at the shiny little leather shoe that crushed the paper, slowly raising her gaze. It was her fifth brother, Lin Yao. At merely 9 years old, his features already bore the distinct elegance of the Lin family. Yet his expression was rife with malicious mockery. With hands in pockets, he loomed over her, a mischievous smirk playing on his lips. "Lin Wan, have you gone mute? They say you copied your homework, is it true?" Lin Yao deliberately raised his voice, casting a glance at the onlooking classmates, his demeanor dripping with ostentatious malice. The laughter around them grew louder. Lin Wan regarded him, her excessively tranquil eyes revealing neither grievance nor anger, only an unfathomable serenity. In a faint whisper, delicate as a thread on the verge of snapping, she replied, "I did not copy." "Who would believe you?" Lin Yao scoffed, bending down abruptly to snatch the fragile remnants of paper she had painstakingly gathered, raising his hand once more. "Stop." A stern reprimand echoed from the classroom door. Teacher Li entered with a stern expression, surveying the chaotic scene before her. Her gaze ultimately landing on Lin Wan crouched on the ground and the paper clutched in Lin Yao's grasp, her brows knitting in evident annoyance. "What is going on? Lin Wan, are you the troublemaker again?" Teacher Li's voice was sharp, making a definitive judgment. Lin Wan slowly rose to her feet, her arms now empty. Bowing her head, she instinctively tucked her left wrist into the faded cuff of her school uniform. Unconsciously rubbing the spot with her right thumb, a phantom pain lingering from countless past infusions, long since healed, but still haunting her. "Teacher Li. She was the one who copied the homework and won't he admit it?" The chubby boy interjected. "I did not." Lin Wan's voice remained soft, yet it carried clearly. She lifted her head, meeting the teacher's gaze, her expression still hollow, yet imbued with an unsettling maturity. "I wrote the homework myself." "Wrote it yourself?" Teacher Li appeared to have heard a joke, as her husband held a supervisory position in a minor company under the Lin Group. Having only a vague grasp of the family's dynamics, she perceived Lin Wan as a troublesome child lacking connections or support, with a gloomy and peculiar disposition. "Very well. You're defiant, are you? Come with me to the office. I will conduct a thorough investigation." She emphasized the word investigation, her eyes brimming with disdain and certainty. In her mind, Lin Wan was the perfect scapegoat to quell this minor chaos. Lin Wan offered no argument, merely following Teacher Li out of the classroom. As she passed Lin Yao, he maliciously stuck out his tongue at her. "Whatever. The office, or perhaps the storage room." In her previous life, it had been the storage room, dark and cold, but peaceful. "My fifth brother seems to despise me. That's fine, I've grown accustomed to it. This is best. The further he stays from me, the less he'll grieve when I'm gone." Lin Yao's mocking expression instantly froze, his eyes widening in disbelief as he gazed at Lin Wan's slender figure. Had he just heard something? Lin Wan's voice? Did she mention the storage room? Did she say he hated her? Did she just say die? He vigorously shook his head, dismissing the notion. It must be an illusion. How could he possibly hear Lin Wan's thoughts? She had not uttered a word. Following Teacher Li, Lin Wan indeed did not proceed to the teacher's office, but turned toward the dim storage room piled with clutter at the end of the corridor. "In you go. Reflect on your actions. Come out only when you've thought it through." Teacher Li shoved her inside, slamming the door behind her and locking it from the outside. Darkness engulfed her small form instantly, with only a sliver of weak light seeping through the crack beneath the door, the air thick with dust and the musty scent of old belongings. Lin Wan did not panic nor cry out. She groped her way to a relatively clean corner, curling up and resting her chin on her knees. The darkness offered her a sense of comfort, far more reassuring than the clamor and malice outside. She closed her eyes. "Just like in my previous life, how wonderful it is. I am spared from confronting those loathsome faces. My heart seems to be racing a bit too fast. Is it because I walked too quickly just now? Endure it, it will pass. My elder brother will review the homework tonight, but there is no homework left. He will surely frown again. The children of the Lin family are not allowed to show weakness, TSK. It would be better to be dead, than I wouldn't be a bother to my brother." Wouldn't he have to hear fifth brother scolding, and wouldn't he be confined in the little dark room? Outside the door, Lin Yao, for reasons unknown, inexplicably followed, hiding around the corner. When that clear voice, laden with profound disdain and despair, penetrated his mind once more without hindrance, he felt as though struck by lightning. He clamped his mouth shut, barely suppressing a scream. This was not an illusion. He could truly hear Lin Wan's thoughts. She was just thinking about dying. The Lin family's villa, enormous and opulent, was as cold as a freezer. Lin Wan sat at the far end of the long dining table, her small form nearly engulfed by the heavy mahogany chair. The dishes before her were exquisite and fragrant, yet she had little appetite, only taking small spoonfuls of plain congee. At the head of the table, her elder brother Lin Jin had returned. He wore a perfectly tailored black suit, immaculate and radiating an aura that deterred even the most daring from approaching. He was quickly flipping through emails on his tablet, his brow furrowed as was his habit. Rarely did he dine at home, and his return today seemed purposeful. He was here to inspect Lin Wan's homework. The air was so thick it felt suffocating. Aunt Zhang, responsible for Lin Wan's care, stood nearby, scarcely daring to breathe. Finally, Lin Jin set down his tablet, his sharp gaze piercing like a scalpel towards his sister at the end of the table. Homework. His voice was flat, both a statement and a command. Lin Wan's fingers, gripping the spoon, tightened imperceptibly. She placed the spoon down and retrieved a battered workbook from her weathered old backpack. The cover, torn in places, was clumsily mended with transparent tape, and every page within had been similarly patched, the writing appearing somewhat distorted at the creases. She silently stood, approached Lin Jin, and placed the workbook before him, then stepped back, lowering her head like a prisoner awaiting judgment. Lin Jin's gaze swept over the pitiful cover, and his brow furrowed even more tightly. He flipped it open, his eyes rapidly scanning the neatly written questions and answers. The first-grade material was laughably simplistic to him, yet Lin Wan's answers were surprisingly correct. Her handwriting was elegant, her reasoning clear. He recalled how Teacher Li had vaguely mentioned that Lin Wan might be misbehaving, but the meticulously repaired homework before him radiated a stubborn earnestness. A faint, scarcely perceptible doubt flickered in his mind. He picked up a pen and pointed to a slightly challenging extension question. This question, your reasoning? Lin Wan raised her eyes, glanced at the question, maintaining her calm demeanor as she replied softly, first, calculate the parentheses, then multiply and divide. Simple and direct. Lin Jin said nothing, his fingers continuing to turn the pages. When he reached a certain page, his movement stalled. It was a very simple arithmetic problem, 53? Beside it, Lin Wan had written a large, clear 8. However, that 8 was obscured by several chaotic and forceful pencil scratches. The marks were so heavy they nearly tore through the paper, and, beside it, a crooked, clearly panicked attempt at writing a 0. Lin Jin's expression instantly turned frigid, the surrounding air temperature plummeting. He slammed the workbook onto the table. Lin Wan, his voice, though not raised, carried a sense of impending storm, explain. Lin Wan's body trembled almost imperceptibly, a sharper pain blossoming in her heart. She gripped her left wrist tightly within her sleeve, her fingertips digging into her palm, using pain as a reminder to stay awake and maintain her facade. Explain what? Explain why I crossed out the correct answers to write the wrong ones? Because if I got them all right, I'd attract attention. And that Teacher Li would target me even more, and classmates would accuse me of cheating. And I'd be confined in the little dark room for an even longer time because I don't want to cause trouble. I'm so tired. When my brother is angry, his aura is so overpowering, my heart feels so uncomfortable. She lowered her head, her long lashes trembling violently, her complexion even paler than before. Her lips pressed tight, turning white. She tried to squeeze out a few tears, just like an ordinary 6-year-old child would when frightened, but she failed. Her heart was too weary, even the strength to feign tears eluded her. Speak. Lin Jin's voice grew heavier. He detested such silence and cowardice. After their parents' accident, he was forced to shoulder the entire Lin family, compelling himself to don the hardest, coldest shell. He could neither comprehend nor tolerate the fragility of his sister, which seemed to shatter at the slightest touch. It irritated him, reminding him of the image of their parents, who had clung tightly to her, the only one who survived. A complex mix of pain and misplaced anger scorched his reason. Lin Wan took a deep breath, suppressing the discomfort in her heart, and lifted her head to meet Lin Jin's icy, scrutinizing gaze. Her eyes remained hollow, shrouded in an impenetrable fog. I wrote it wrong. Her voice was dry later. I changed it. A clumsy lie. Lin Jin gazed at her pale face and those lifeless eyes, an inexplicable fury igniting within him. Again, this half-alive, submissive demeanor. How could a child of the Lin family be so utterly useless? He abruptly stood, his towering figure casting a formidable shadow. He seized the battered workbook. His voice as cold as ice. Wrote it wrong? I see you have not set your mind on the right path at all. The Lin family provides for your food, clothing, and education, not for you to engage in these inconsequential antics. Keep your thoughts in check. If I catch you again, his words were left unfinished. For at that moment, a voice, clear as a whisper yet laden with endless fatigue and despair, suddenly crashed into his mind. It would be better to be dead. Then I wouldn't have to trouble my brother with anger, nor would I need to have my homework checked anymore. So annoying, truly so annoying. Boom. Lin Jin's mind went blank. That voice, it was Lin Wan's. Yet she had her head down, her lips tightly pressed together. Where did that voice come from? So clear, so world-weary. He turned sharply to look at Lin Wan. The girl still had her head lowered, her slender shoulders trembling slightly, like a reed that might snap in a storm. Her small face bore no expression, terrifyingly calm. Yet the despair and annoyance conveyed in that inner voice pierced through his hardened armor like a tangible icicle. An unprecedented surge of mixed emotions, shock, absurdity, and a hint of panic he was reluctant to acknowledge, gripped him. Bang! With a resounding crash, Lin Jin almost lost control, forcefully slamming the workbook onto the gleaming dining table. The loud noise echoed throughout the empty dining room. He did not spare Lin Wan another glance, enveloped in an oppressive atmosphere as he swiftly exited the dining room. His steps quick and somewhat unsteady, even colliding with the doorframe without noticing. The dining room fell into a deathly silence. Aunt Zhang turned pale with fright. Lin Wan slowly raised her head, gazing in the direction her brother had vanished, then glanced down at the workbook that had once again been flung open, its pages scattered. Look, he's angry again as expected. It's much cleaner to be dead. She calmly crouched down and began to pick up the torn pieces of paper. Her movements so practiced they were heartbreaking. Hidden in the shadows at the corner of the staircase on the second floor, Lin Yao watched it all unfold, his small body trembling violently from shock and an inexplicable fear. Brother heard it too. Lin Wan, she really thinks about dying every day. In Lin Wan's life, beneath the seemingly tranquil surface lies an abyss of despair. The bullying at school has intensified. Tearing up homework and locking her in the storage room have become daily occurrences. Mr. Li has grown increasingly harsh towards her, transforming any minor friction into her fault. Lin Yao, her eldest brother, remains the ringleader of her tormentors. But now his gaze towards her is imbued with a complex mix of anxiety and fear that Lin Wan cannot decipher. After every cruel remark, he would fixate on her, as if awaiting some unspoken revelation. Lin Wan, disinterested in pondering this, has chosen to retreat into a deeper silence, striving to diminish her presence even further. On this particular day, during physical education class, the children were allowed to play freely. They darted around the playground like birds released from a cage, laughing and shouting. Yet, Lin Wan sat quietly on a bench in a shaded corner, clutching her only remnant from the past, a faded old rabbit toy with one ear stitched back on. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting a glow on her pale face, yet she felt no warmth, only a heaviness in her chest and difficulty in breathing. Lin Wan, you're slacking off again. The gym teacher's voice pierced through her reverie. Come over and run. Lin Wan lifted her head, her gaze vacant as she surveyed the bustling playground, and gently shook her head, her voice barely a whisper. Teacher, I just don't want to move. She could not admit that her heart ached. No one would believe her, and it would only invite more trouble and the label of being overly dramatic. Running might hasten her demise, and perhaps that would be a relief. The sunlight felt blinding, and she longed to sleep, to slip into an eternal slumber. Not far from the horizontal bar, Lin Yao, engaged in playful roughhousing with his classmates, suddenly froze, his face paling. The dreaded inner voice surged again. Irritated, he raked his fingers through his hair, his gaze involuntarily drawn to the shadowy figure in the corner. She hugged that ugly rabbit. Her small frame curled up as if she might dissolve into the sunlight at any moment. A wave of inexplicable ire surged through him. Lin Yao himself was uncertain of his feelings. He pushed away his friends and strode purposefully towards Lin Wan. "Stop pretending to be dead," he barked, deliberately adopting a fierce tone as he snatched the rabbit toy from her embrace and hurled it to the ground, kicking it afterward as if to express his lingering frustration. "You carry this tattered thing around all day. It's infuriating to look at." The rabbit rolled a few times, gathering dust. Laughter erupted among the surrounding classmates. Lin Wan's gaze followed her toy until it came to a halt. She did not look at Lin Yao, nor did she cry out. Silently, she stood up, walked over, bent down to retrieve the rabbit, and meticulously brushed off the dust before cradling it once more. It was as if the assault on her cherished possession was merely an inconsequential event. She did not cast another glance at Lin Yao as she returned to the bench, burying her face in the rabbit's relatively clean belly. "It's dirty. I'll have to wash it when I get home. This is the last from my parents." Lin Yao seems to despise this rabbit. "Next time, I'll hide it to avoid angering him. I'm so tired. My chest feels heavy." The medicine unconsciously, Lin Wan's hand reached into her uniform pocket, feeling the small, cold plastic pillbox. She needed some relief. Yet, glancing around at the crowd, she hesitated. Lin Yao observed her submissive demeanor, as if her existence were akin to striking a blow against cotton. And his irritation flared even higher, causing him to feel increasingly unsettled. Noticing her hand probing her pocket, he impulsively stepped forward and yanked the small white pillbox from her grasp. "Stop pretending to be ill. Always fiddling with this worthless box." Lin Yao triumphantly raised the pillbox high, declaring loudly to the surrounding classmates, "Look, Lin Wan is faking sickness. This must be candy." The moment the pillbox was snatched away, Lin Wan's face strained of the last vestiges of color. She abruptly raised her head, and for the first time, her vacant eyes flickered with intense emotion, panic. Genuine panic. "Give it back to me." Her voice trembled slightly as she reached out to grab it. "No, that's life-saving medication. Without it, I could die. I really could die." The terror in her voice struck like thunder, causing Lin Yao's hand to tremble, and the pillbox slipped from his fingers. With a thud, it hit the ground, the lid bursting open. Colorful tablets and tiny capsules spilled out like beads from a broken string, scattering across the dirt and grass at the edge of the playground. Time seemed to freeze. Lin Wan remained poised with outstretched arms, frozen in place. She stared at the scattered pills, the very candies that sustained her fragile existence. Her pupils dilated sharply, and the pain in her chest intensified, nearly suffocating her. She opened her mouth, but no sound emerged, only the faint, stifled sounds of her gasping breaths. "They're gone. All gone. Perhaps it's better this way." A profound despair washed over her like a cold tide, submerging her entirely. Darkness clouded her vision as her body swayed, and she fell back limply. "Lin Wan!" Lin Yao's scream transformed into one of unprecedented fear. Instinctively, he lunged forward to catch her, but another figure rushed in faster. It was the school nurse. Having kept a watchful eye on that corner, she dashed over, her expression grave, and caught Lin Wan's limp form, swiftly checking her pulse and breathing. "Medication." Lin Wan summoned her last ounce of strength, her finger weakly pointing towards the scattered pills. The nurse understood immediately. She quickly scanned the ground, relying on her experience to swiftly collect a few crucial tablets, disregarding their dirtiness, prying Lin Wan's mouth open to administer them, and then scooping up the lightweight girl as she sprinted toward the infirmary. Before departing, she cast a deep, meaningful look at Lin Yao, who stood frozen. His face as pale as parchment, her gaze a complex mix of reproach and pity, culminating in a barely audible sigh. Lin Yao felt as though he were nailed to the spot, his body cold. He stared blankly at the dirted pills on the ground, watching the nurse carry Lin Wan away, the echoes of her desperate words, "Perhaps it's better this way," reverberating in his ears. "No, it's not candy," he muttered, a wave of panic and remorse tightening its grip around his heart. What had he done? Had he nearly caused his sister's demise? In another corner of the Lin family villa, Lin Che's exclusive laboratory buzzed with sterile instruments emanating a ghostly blue light. The air thick with the scent of disinfectants and chemical reagents. Clad in a white lab coat and safety goggles, he meticulously analyzed a series of intricate neuroelectrical signal graphs, his demeanor focused yet indifferent. An assistant cautiously entered, "Second young master. The life signs monitor in Miss S room that you requested special attention for indicated an abnormal acceleration in heart rate 10 minutes ago, accompanied by a brief peak of arrhythmia. It has since stabilized, but the overall data remains perilously close to the danger threshold." The assistant presented a freshly printed waveform chart. Lin Che set down the pipette, taking the report with a sharp, scrutinizing gaze that swept over the fluctuating curves. His brow furrowed slightly. What triggered it? The simultaneously transmitted audio analysis revealed sounds of a fierce argument and objects crashing. Keywords: faking illness, pillbox, give it back. The assistant's voice carried an almost imperceptible tension. It appears to be a stress response triggered by intense provocation. Stress? A cold smirk graced Lin Che's lips, his skepticism towards psychological explanations deeply ingrained. It's merely an overreaction of the cerebral cortex. Her physiological indicators are what truly matter. He set down the report and approached another device connected by more intricate wires. The screen displaying a more detailed electroencephalogram transmitted from Lin Wan's room. Prepare a sedative, adjusted to pediatric dosage. Before Lin Che could finish his command, his gaze casually swept across the real-time brainwave monitor. Suddenly, both his actions and voice froze. The screen displayed a surge of highly complex, hyperactive waveforms that defied the expected flatline of a comatose state. The waveforms pulsed violently, embodying a silent yet intense cry for help. What caused Lin Che's pupils to constrict was that, almost simultaneously with the appearance of the extraordinarily active brainwaves, the screen monitoring physiological indicators beside him displayed a sudden flattening of the curve representing Lin Wan's heartbeat. Her heart had ceased to beat. This was inconceivable. How could the heart stop in such an active state of brain activity? This contradicted everything he understood about medical principles. In those heart-stopping moments, Lin Che's gaze was fixed intently on that abnormal set of brainwaves. As a medical prodigy specializing in neurology, particularly in signal transmission, he forced himself to calm down and began to analyze the fierce fluctuations in frequency and intervals with an extraordinary speed. Tap, 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 tap. Short bursts, intervals, lengthy gaps, specific combinations. This was not a chaotic brainwave anomaly. It was Morse code. A sudden chill gripped Lin Che's heart, a wave of coldness surging up his spine. Almost instinctively, he began translating that set of signals, struck out with the last ounce of life. SOS, HELP. SOS, help. She was calling for aid. Under the cold, clinical scrutiny of the instruments he prided himself on, while he assumed it was merely an overreaction of the cerebral cortex, his sister, in a coma, was silently and desperately signaling for help using the knowledge within his field of expertise. And at that moment, her frail heart ceased to beat. For the first time, Lin Che felt an overwhelming absurdity and an almost suffocating panic in the face of the scientific data he held sacred. He ripped off his goggles and slammed them onto the lab table, roaring at his stunned assistant. His voice devoid of its usual calm and laced with unrecognized tremors. Cardiac stimulant. Adrenaline. Notify the hospital to prepare for ECMO. Hurry. At the same time, on the other side of the city, in a premier sports arena, the spotlight flickered and a colossal electronic screen showcased an intensely contested professional league finals. The audience roared like a tidal wave, the atmosphere electric. Lin Shua, controlling the assassin character, lay in wait within the shadows, seeking the opportunity for a decisive strike. Wearing noise-canceling headphones, his handsome face was etched with focus, his gaze sharp as an eagle, fingers dancing across the keyboard at a speed that left afterimages. Only he knew that amidst the tactical communication from his teammates, there was also a faint, continuous background sound, the heartbeat from the monitor in Lin Wan's hospital room. The only thing grounding him in that moment. Sure. Mid lane. You can engage in mid. His teammate's voice blared through his headphones. Lin Shua's expression sharpened. His fingers poised over the key for a critical skill. Just then, a striking, animated comment surged to the top of the live stream's chat like a venomous snake. How shameless. Lin Shua, do you still have the face to compete? Your sister was caught stealing at school. The Lin family has produced a thief. What a disgrace. Your whole family is rotten. This comment splashed like cold water into a boiling pot of oil. Instantly, a flood of mindless, sensationalist comments followed. Is it true? Lin Shua's sister? That sickly girl? A wealthy heiress stealing? Ridiculous. Like brother, like sister? Wasn't Lin Shua a thug before? Trash family. Get out of the esports scene. Lin Shua's fingers hovered motionless above the skill key. He had seen that comment and the wave of malice that followed. His sister stealing? Lin Wan? The sister who was as quiet as air, with a gaze so hollow it sent shivers down one's spine? A violent rage, mingled with a fearful unknown about his sister's predicament, erupted within him like a volcanic explosion. He didn't care about the insults directed at him. He was used to it. But to insult his sister? His sister, who breathed with such caution as if she might shatter at any moment. He abruptly raised his head, looking toward the audience and then at the live camera. Those eyes, usually filled with fury and defiance, now blazed with a terrifying fire. Like a lion thoroughly enraged. Boom! A deafening sound drowned out the cheers and commentary of the crowd. In the astonished gaze of tens of thousands of spectators and millions of online viewers, Lin Shua, famed for his sharp gameplay and fiery temper, in a pivotal moment of the finals, smashed his expensive custom mechanical keyboard violently onto the esports table. The keyboard shattered into countless pieces, plastic fragments and mechanical switches scattering everywhere. The entire venue fell into a profound silence. Only Lin Shua's heavy breathing resonated through the microphone, echoing in every corner. He tore off his headphones, stood up, and leaned over the broken keyboard, his body trembling with sheer fury. He fixed his gaze on the live camera. His eyes fierce enough to seem predatory, his voice hoarse yet thunderous, ringing out across the digital realm. FKU. Dare to insult my sister again, just try. I'll buy out this damn school. The first to go will be your entire family. Lin Wan regained consciousness amidst the acrid scent of disinfectant and the persistent low hum of medical machinery. Her vision remained blurry for a few seconds before gradually clarifying. She found herself staring at a stark white ceiling and a cold floor stand. A transparent liquid dripped steadily through the needle in her hand, entering her veins. Though her chest still felt heavy, the suffocating sensation of near death had receded. She was in a hospital, in a single patient room, quiet and spacious. Turning her dry eyes, she caught sight of a figure slumped beside the bed. Lin Yao, her fifth brother. He lay against the bed's edge, his profile resting on his arm. His brows furrowed even in sleep, dark circles beneath his eyes, clutching an open book titled Illustrated Pediatric Cardiology. Lin Wan's gaze held no fluctuation. She simply watched him, observing the incongruity of the professional book in his hands, which seemed so mismatched to his age and character. Is my fifth brother studying this? Because of me? What a waste of energy. It wouldn't help anyway. So noisy, the monitors beeping, how bothersome. Lin Yao, resting at the bedside, jolted upright as if electrocuted. Instantly awakened. He lifted his head, his bloodshot eyes still clouded with lingering terror, but upon seeing Lin Wan's open eyes, that fear instantly transformed into overwhelming, unmasked joy and a kind of humility Lin Wan had never seen on his face before. Wan, you're awake. How do you feel? Are you still uncomfortable? Does your chest still hurt? Lin Yao babbled, flustered, attempting to press the call button while wanting to touch her but hesitating, like a child awaiting judgment for a misdeed. His gaze remained fixed on Lin Wan's face, greedily confirming her consciousness. Lin Wan continued to silently observe him, her eyes still hollow, gently shaking her head. Her throat felt parched, unable to articulate a word. Lin Yao quickly grasped the situation, hurriedly pouring a cup of warm water, carefully moistening a cotton swab, and gently dabbing her cracked lips, his movements awkward yet earnest. The doctor said you can't drink too much water at once, just a little to moisten it, he said, his voice hoarse, thick with nasal congestion, his eyes red-rimmed as if he had been crying for a long time. Is my fifth brother crying? Because of me? How strange, in my past life, he never looked at me like this. Is it because he almost caused my death, feeling guilty? Lin Yao's hand holding the cotton swab trembled violently, almost losing his grip on the cup. That calm inner voice sliced through his heart like a knife. He suddenly bowed his head, his shoulders shaking uncontrollably as suppressed sobs escaped his throat. I apologize, Wan, fifth brother was wrong. He is a scoundrel, a fool. Tears streamed down his face, plummeting onto the pristine white sheets in large droplets. I truly didn't realize that it was medication. I had no idea you were suffering so much. I promise I will never bully you again. Never take your things again. I will protect you. I'm studying medicine. I will safeguard you, all right? He rambled incoherently in his remorse, resembling a lost child who has finally found their way home, filled with dread and regret. Lin Wan observed his breakdown, a fleeting flicker of bewilderment passing through her gaze, before it returned to an impenetrable silence. Protection? Spare me. It's too late, and furthermore, it's unnecessary. She closed her eyes, refusing to look at him any longer. Weariness washed over her once more like a relentless tide. The door to the hospital room was gently pushed open. Elder brother Lin Jin entered, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit. Though his brow was furrowed with an exhaustion that seemed insurmountable, faint shadows lingering beneath his eyes. Behind him followed a formidable middle-aged man clad in a white coat. Exuding an aura of authority, his gaze sharp as an eagle's, as cold and precise as a scalpel, Director Chen Feng, the mentor of second brother Lin Che. Lin Jin's eyes first settled on Lin Wan. Upon seeing her awake, he seemed to imperceptibly exhale a sigh of relief. However, upon noticing Lin Yao, who was weeping uncontrollably at the bedside, his brow instinctively furrowed further, revealing a hint of irritation. "What are you crying for? What a sight!" Lin Jin reprimanded in a low voice. He turned to Director Chen, his tone exhibiting the reticence of a superior, yet a subtle tension lingered beneath. Director Chen. Regarding Wanwan's condition, Director Chen Feng paid no heed to Lin Jin's words. He strode directly to the bedside, disregarding Lin Yao, his penetrating gaze landing squarely on Lin Wan's pale visage. He then seized a thick stack of medical records hanging at the foot of the bed, flipping through them with a roughness that seemed almost brutal. The atmosphere in the room plummeted to an icy chill. "Humph." Director Chen emitted a cold scoff, closing the medical records with a sharp snap before abruptly turning, hurling the hefty collection of documents chronicling Lin Wan's sufferings and ailments from birth to present into Lin Jin's arms as if discarding refuse. Caught off guard, Lin Jin staggered back a step, the expensive fabric of his suit marked by the impact. His expression darkened instantly, as the head of the Lin family. He had never endured such treatment. Yet Director Chen appeared oblivious to his discomfort, hands tucked into the pockets of his white coat, chin slightly raised. His gaze piercing like icicles directed at Lin Jin, then sweeping over the recently arrived second brother Lin Che, third brother Lin Yan, the twins, and fourth brother Lin Shua, who burst in with reddened eyes, clearly having just dealt with the fallout of a competition. His voice, though not raised, sliced through the air like a sharpened scalpel, each word resonating with a clarity that struck at the hearts of every Lin brother. "Mr. Lin? Young Master Lin? And you lot? Open your eyes and take a good look." Director Chen pointed at the medical records in Lin Jin's grasp, each word laced with the fury of thunder and disdain. 17 records of heart failure beyond the second degree, severe pulmonary hypertension, residual shunting after ventricular defect repair, long-term malnutrition leading to severe cardiac damage, and the records of the banned substances she secretly overdosed on to alleviate her pain. With each revelation, the Lin brothers' faces paled further, especially Lin Che, who staggered at the mention of the overdosed illicit substances, his complexion ashen. Memories of the tranquilizers he had prescribed to his sister and the abnormal drug metabolism report he had overlooked flooded his mind. Director Chen's gaze struck like a tangible whip, lashing against each face. "Tell me, how has a 6-year-old child, burdened with such a broken body, managed to survive until today? Relying on you so-called brothers? On the Lin family's wealth?" He paused, delivering a colder and sharper scoff, filled with scathing sarcasm. "She has survived not because of your family's riches, nor due to your care. It is because of her own will. This 6-year-old child has created her own miracle. It is her indomitable will to survive that keeps her alive. And what about you?" His gaze was a judgment, sweeping over the 5 privileged sons of the Lin family, whose faces were ashen, as if struck by lightning. "You are preoccupied with being CEOs, with being medical geniuses, with being mathematicians, with being sports stars. You are busy numbing yourselves with work, with research, with competition. You are busy evading responsibility. You even bully her, neglect her, treating her as a burden and a nuisance." His final gaze landed on Lin Jin, whose countenance was frozen in shock, the contempt in Director Chen's eyes nearly tangible. "Lin Jin, Mr. Lin? You brothers? Is there one among you who truly deserves this, sister? The last question resounded like thunder, reverberating through the silent hospital room. Lin Jin clutched the heavy medical records as if grasping a searing iron. His towering figure swayed, for the first time before others, losing his imposing demeanor. He looked down at the harrowing data and records laid bare before him, truths he had never cared for, even actively avoided, each word striking like a hammer, shattering his cold, hardened exterior, exposing the bleeding core of regret within. Lin Che stared blankly at Lin Wan, who lay with closed eyes, seemingly oblivious to it all. He recalled the Morse code signals she had sent out while in a coma, his past indifference and misplaced faith flooding back, the immense pain nearly causing him to falter. Lin Yan, usually sharp-witted, found his mind a blank canvas, flashes of Lin Wan erasing the answer to the Riemann hypothesis, her exam paper marked with a 0. Those symbols he had deemed proof of weakness now transformed into a silent indictment. Lin Shua clenched his fists, nails digging into his palms, blood seeping unnoticed. He remembered the calls he had ignored, the venomous comments in the live stream chat. He professed to protect his sister yet had been oblivious to her most fundamental safety. Lin Yao was already choking on his sobs, engulfed by overwhelming regret and fear. In the hospital room, only the rhythmic beeping of machines and the labored breaths of the men remained. The air was as heavy as solidified lead. At that moment, Lin Wan, who had kept her eyes closed, seemed disturbed by the oppressive atmosphere. Her long lashes fluttered before she slowly opened her eyes. Those still hollow orbs gazed calmly over her brothers, who appeared dazed, pained, or filled with remorse, finally resting upon the expressions of contrition that had never graced their faces before. Her gaze held no joy, no sentiment. Only a barren tranquility and a hint of the faintest, almost pitying sarcasm. So you all know now? Finally feel guilty? It's a pity, it's too late. I no longer need it. This silent cry of the heart was the final straw that utterly shattered the fragile psychological defenses of the Lin brothers. The crematorium had only just begun to ignite, and the flame's heat scorched their belated, searing remorse to the core. The end of the text. Thank you for listening. And we shall meet again in the next story.